Hi and welcome to Parks Uncut. I'm Monica and I'm the Parks Manager for Kensington and Chelsea. One of the biggest challenges we face in the borough is limited space. Creating new green spaces or planters is tricky, and we don't have traditional allotments. Instead, we have kitchen gardens and raised beds located throughout the borough that are allocated to residents for food growing. This work is supported by our community gardeners, and they will be leading today's episode, telling you about the work they do supporting food growing in the borough and how you can grow your own in the smallest of spaces.
Hello, I'm Lisa Wilkinson. I'm one of the community gardeners at RBKC. I've been in this post for nearly 14 years, and the post was brought about by delivering kitchen gardens across the borough in disused spaces, which lets and teaches and supports residents in growing their own food. Food is not necessarily just restricted to growing in the raised beds. You can also do it at home, and we're happy to give you advice and support on this. And I'll introduce you to my colleague.
I'm Sally Stratton, and I'm one of the other community gardeners. I've just been here since February last year, so I'm a relative newcomer to the project, but have come from a community gardening background, working in heritage and with all sorts of groups like Mind and within schools and a variety of different settings. So it's brilliant to be working with a council which actually thinks that this is a priority because it's very unusual, and I think we're the only ones, aren't we, in London where we've actually got a community gardener as a proper council officer role, and it's great that it's recognised as being part of the wellbeing offer for the council.
I think you find, across the whole of London, there's lots of lovely little community projects, but they tend to be group-run, group-led, there's nothing wrong with that, and working to a shared space. We're very different because the council recognised by having people that can advise residents, but can also support the allocation of the spaces. It becomes a much fairer, much more open space, and also we can help to encourage to build the groups. So it also helps with community cohesion and bringing residents together in a way that they might not necessarily meet and come together. If you live in a tower block, it's very difficult to meet your neighbours that live above or below you. Your lifts might not go to those floors. In fact, I know one project that we run where neighbours have been living in the same block for 30 years and never seen each other until they had a gardening plot next to each other, and are now firm friends.
And people really take care of each other in the gardens. I noticed that just yesterday and at the weekend. I was at one of our gardens, which is inside an estate in Chelsea, and a couple of the people there have been unwell, and somebody else who I was talking to in the garden came up and said, listen, if you need some help with digging, I can help you. Realising that these ladies had not been well. And it was so instantaneous and meant from the heart, because he really did care. Everybody wants the garden to look its best anyway, but he actually cared about them as neighbours, and probably hadn't seen them for a number of months because they'd been unwell, 2 separate occasions. And I think that's really good, people looking out for each other. They notice if somebody is not, by their plot, it says, I'm not well, please help me. And that's a really good way of getting to know your neighbours, but helping out your neighbours as well.
Absolutely. I mean, in the last sort of 15, 20 years, society has become much more isolated. People have become much more isolated. Everything's done digitally, so where pensioners would go to the post office and the postmaster would recognise if they haven't seen someone, the milkman would deliver and notice if the milk bottles were piling up. We've lost that, through the joy of having to do everything at hyper speeds and, making it all efficient. Personally, I don't think it's made life any more efficient. I think it's made it a lot more frustrating. But once you're in the garden, you can take time to be more mindful, sit down, take the time to notice whether or not your neighbours are around. Recognise that you don't have to do everything at hypersonic speed, and nothing's going to fall apart if you just have half an hour in the garden chatting to your neighbour over a tomato plant that's maybe not doing so well.
And our plots are really small. because we don't have any allotments in Kensington and Chelsea because there isn't the land. These are just small plots. Most of them are 2 metres by 1 metre. Some of them in some of the sites are smaller than that. And it's very manageable. But you can grow quite a lot on that small space, and it's amazing how many things people can fit in. I signed up somebody new to a plot yesterday, and she goes, "How many different vegetables can I grow?" I said, "As many as you want, just experiment." I said, "At least 10. She goes, "Wow, where do I start?" And we're there to really, offer support and help if people have never gardened before, but we also have people who maybe are very experienced gardeners, and they maybe have downsized, and now, as you say, they could be living in a tower block and really need that contact with the land. It's really good for you. Having your hands in soil, breathing in the air around soil is proven to be very good for you physically as well as mentally. And we love it. We spend a lot of time with our hands in the soil, don't we, Lisa?
And there is an awful lot of evidence that there's microbes in the soil that you absorb through your hands. Please don't go out and soil bathe. But yes, they do mimic your happy hormones. And in some cases are proven to be more effective than antidepressants. Don't give up taking your pills if you need to take your pills, but give gardening a chance. You might find you'll be able to reduce some of that medication. And, eat a healthier diet, because, this supersonic fast food, get it delivered to your door, throw it in the microwave, eat it. It's not the healthiest lifestyle. So why not think about growing a herb box in your garden window ledge? Why not think about, you can grow tomatoes in a hanging basket. There's a special variety called Tumbling Toms, and they do very much to it. Most tomatoes want to grow upright. These ones like to tumble over. So not only do they look pretty and they're very encouraging for wildlife, they are also very edible, and there's nothing nicer than picking a couple of small tomatoes, throwing them on your salad.
Just eating them, popping them straight in your mouth. Or peas, just popping them straight out of the pod, just popping them straight in your mouth. It's better than sweeties, it's lovely. And we are part of the ecology department, so as well as it being well-being for humans, it's well-being for insect and bird life, and keeping the balance, the biodiversity of our borough really well balanced. It encourages bees to be able to move from place to place via the bee
pollinators are also
and not just honeybees. We're very keen on bumblebees. There's a lot of honeybees around, but we really like our bumblebees as well. But there's all sorts of insects, and I'm digging up a plot and you'll find worms that are over a foot long. It's phenomenal. I have a huge curiosity now for all the beasts and little mini beasts and things we find in the garden, because I keep on finding different things that I didn't know about before. So we're learning all the time, and people bring things to our attention, and if we don't know about them, we've got a lot of expertise here in our sort of greater division. We can ask. We've got real experts on everything in the ecology department, and I can say, what is this? What does it do? What does it eat? And so I think our curiosity is always fed by the curiosity of our lovely plot holders who say, I saw this today. Or when I had people taking part last year in the big butterfly count, and just being part of a bigger sort of citizen science project like that is really valuable. We take part in London in Bloom. We like to be involved in things.
Yeah, and again, obviously with Sally mentioning about the pollinators, we Kensington and Chelsea instituted something called the Bee Superhighway. So even just having a small window box or a hanging basket, even vegetables, herbs are very good to encourage the Bee Superhighway. And if you have quite a nice little patch, you might even be awarded a plaque saying that you are part of the Bee Superhighway. So we can be very exciting to green and improve for all residents, and sharing. Herbs make great teas, so why are you spending a fortune on herbal teas in the supermarket when you can grow your own? Couple of snips. And we quite often go along to different events and give people tasters of different herbal teas, and they're absolutely amazed of the flavours, things that they don't expect things to taste the way that they taste. So, we really encourage you to try. Food does not need to come pre-packaged.
And we love working with community groups, so if you are part of a community group and you'd really like to know more about what we do and try some herbal teas, you can get in touch with us, community.gardeners@rbkc.gov.uk, making sure I get the whole thing in, because we really like to go out and reach out into the community and make sure that everybody is able to learn how to grow herbs, being able to do that on their, as Lisa has said, on their windowsill, on their balcony, and attract pollinators, but also just make your life more fun.
Yeah, and we're happy to, though we can't give individual attention to every resident in RBKC. We just not have enough hours in the day. But if you have a question around food, you're more than welcome to email and get contact through the website, and when we have the time, and we will try and get back to you with a question of what grows and what doesn't grow. We always encourage people to grow in raised beds or in fresh compost and not digging directly into the ground if it's in a communal space, just because there might be dogs and other animals that are also using the space. So we do provide it to be in a healthy environment for the growing. And get your children engaged. Stop telling your children everything that comes from the ground is filthy, dirty, and it's going to make you very ill, because next time I try and pull a carrot out and feed it to a child, I'd like it not to scream, running, going dirty, dirty, dirty.
There's nothing children like more than a bit of mud. And we like mud too. Well, it's lucky really after the winter we've had, because we've spent an awful lot of time, come rains, come shine, come rain, come rain, come rain. But it's it's all part of living in London and working with the seasons, working with the weather, and it's a great borough to be outside in, and
Well, I mean, if you want to touch on climate change, obviously the more you grow, the better the environment, the cooler the area becomes with the planting. Also, if you're not paving over gardens but you're growing in them, you're helping with the water soak away, so we're not getting the big flooding areas. I mean, dig up those awful paved gardens, get rid of your decking, put some soil in, let the water drain properly.
Get your herbs in there, have the pollinators flying in from their meals. Oh, it's wonderful, yes. We'd have the whole borough going herby if we could.
So let's talk volunteering. I'm joined by Jerry from Ida Verde to talk about his work in the borough. Hi Jerry.
How you doing?
Tell us about your role.
My role really is to sort of like engage with the community, mainly through volunteering and procuring groups to come into the park and have really fun conservation days, which helps with the biodiversity and the sustainability of the park, and adds added value to the park that sometimes the contractors can't get to, and we kind of fill in that gap really. So
Brilliant. You have a bit of a dual role on contract, because you do a lot of the volunteering work, but you're also a trainer on the contract. So tell us about that side of your job.
Obviously, the new inductees will need sort of training right from the start, and some of them are right at the beginning of their careers really, and to get them going they have to be trained on machinery, that's trimmers, maybe sort of hedge trimmers, mowers, and anything else that's thrown at me, and even working at height these days. So it's not just about that either, it's manual handling as well, which is really preserves the person's sort of like physical sort of well-being, because we have to lift a lot of things, and it just teaches them how to lift things properly really. Also within the training sort of spectrum is the MVQ2 award, and which people that have probably been in the business for a while don't really want to take on the full responsibility of a huge apprenticeship, can do the award, get a level 2 really quickly, and within that's learning sort of about 20 plants every 2 weeks, all in Latin, which is quite daunting for some people, but I remember my first sort of launch into that and feeling really daunted by it, and then where after you've done a couple of sessions, you tend to get used to it, and it's like learning people's names, really. That's the way I look upon it. But I try and make them feel as comfortable as possible, and I'm a bit of a transformational leader, really. So even the most uninteresting situations, like probably manual handling, for example, I try and sort of like make it a little bit more interesting, so that they get a grasp of that.
So on the volunteering front, you do a mix of corporate volunteering and also resident volunteering. What sort of projects do you deliver?
Yeah, it could be anything from, well, we follow the horticultural calendar for a start, so that involves a lot of conservation within that now, which is something that's new for me as well, which I've had to learn a lot more of, but the two live together quite happily. And some of the projects we do is probably something like bulb planting or hedge laying in the winter. It does change as the weather changes with the seasons, and then maybe in the summertime we'd be scything, which is something that's deemed to be a little bit old-fashioned, but actually on an environmental basis you're not using any fuel with that, and also you're leaving an environment below it that is not smashed up like a strimmer would smash it up, so you're kind of leaving an area where all our sort of insects and mammals and birds can live in there quite happily, because you haven't destroyed the situation, basically. So, also we do bigger projects. Say there may be a new planting scheme in the borough, for instance, and we'll be sort of like procuring volunteers to come and help plant. And I must say that is probably one of their most favourite things to do.
Well, I guess a lot of that stuff is so out of the norm for a lot of the sort of corporate volunteers and even a lot of our residents. You know, if you work in an office environment or you work in any other environment, being able to sort of get hands-on and start doing some scything and start doing a lot of that other work is quite, specific. It's quite out of the norm for a lot of people. So I guess that's one of the appeals.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of working outdoors, it's very therapeutic. It's also, I think what I find more interesting is a lot of the people that come along have got various roles in their company, but suddenly it turns them upside down almost. So you get natural born leaders who are better outdoors than indoors, that are sort of kind of take over a little bit, but I think more than anything else, I always ask at the end of the day if they've enjoyed themselves, which is probably the most, and most of them had a lot of fun with it. And it makes you, I think for them it's like having a school day out and you're 12 again, and psychologically for them they forget about sort of like things that they normally do. And also, I mean, what's more important, of course, they're actually doing some sterling work for us, which is really important, and that's that sense of pride. Yeah. I think more than anything else. Anything else. But it's they do. I always try and get feedback off of them, and the sense of fun is probably comes across more than anything else.
Brilliant. Just to put it in perspective for everyone listening, in the past few years, Jerry has delivered, I think in 1 year alone, you've delivered over 7,000 hours of volunteering, which is a huge amount of additional resource supporting projects in the borough. So that's absolutely fantastic. How can people get involved if they want to volunteer?
Yeah, I mean, normally we run Task Force for Nature, which is usually every third Saturday of the month. And
that's at Holland Park.
That's at Holland Park at the Ecology Centre at 10:30. So, and we tend to go on to about 3 o'clock. So, any local residents come along. We get a mixture, and also we get to know each other in a really good way because most of them are regulars as well, and it's the team is really together, which is great, and we're really friendly, and we carry out some of the tasks that the corporate groups do, but on a small scale, and sometimes also we can't always do those things during the week because there's other events happening in some of the areas, and Task Force for Nature kind of takes over a little bit on that, and we're able to get to areas that we can't get to normally, which is great. But you can always email me at gerald.kelsey@idaverde.co.uk, and I can't remember the parks when I'm top.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Jerry. No, it's a fantastic project. And if anyone listening is keen to volunteer, then either email Jerry or you can email the Parks team at parks@rbkc.gov.uk and we will sign you up as a volunteer. That's all for this episode. Please join us next time, and as always, please do get in touch if you have any questions.